as Robert Saleh said when he discussed the unexcused absence of Aaron Rodgers at minicamp, right? What's good for Aaron is good for us, as Aaron was out there touring the pyramids over in Egypt instead of being with his teammates. And listen, I didn't make that all that big of a deal of it at the time, Otis, but the big debate or conversation now comes along with Rodgers outside of what is he going to look like being in his 40s, coming off a torn Achilles 4 plays into the season. There's plenty of conversation layers to that as well, is what exactly and how do you handle him through the preseason here? As the Jets get set to open up their preseason against Washington, they're going to see Jaden Daniels. Dan Quinn already made that announcement for the Washington Commanders, their rookie quarterback, former Heisman Trophy winner from LSU, and the second overall draft choice this spring in the NFL draft. But how do you handle Rodgers? That's the big thing here. Coming off the torn Achilles 4 plays into the year, he tried to be a medical marvel. He wasn't able to return last year. Now the question is, do you need to knock off a little bit of the ring rust off Rodgers in the preseason before things get going against San Francisco?
Well, we know for the first 2 games, Tyrod Taylor is going to play. Aaron Rodgers is not going to play. My thoughts are that Robert Saleh did not want to commit to saying that he's not going to play at all during the preseason, because if Aaron Rodgers wants to play in that last game against the Giants, I believe that the Jets will follow his lead, allow him to play, because who wants to go out there against that San Francisco 49er defense opening night, Monday night, under the bright lights? That's your first action of the year. And I know that there's a lot of talk about getting preseason action, getting preseason snaps against some good defenses in these joint practices, but there's nothing like that final preseason game where he would go up against the Giants' first-team defense, which would be formidable for him, give him a good test for the opener. I believe that if he decides that he wants to play and that he needs the action before that Monday night opener, that the Jets will follow his lead, because they've done that a lot with a lot of decisions that they've made. They follow his lead. And just like you said, the Egyptian situation,
Yeah, going over to Egypt. Well, I don't think there's any doubt about it. I mean, I think for a guy that has accomplished really, nothing with the Jets other than provide hope, and that hope was dashed 4 plays into the season last year, he's got a tremendous amount of power. Why? Because the Jets are desperate, right? They're desperate. We've watched Zach Wilson play quarterback. He's now a member of the Denver Broncos. Quarterback situation. The quarterback is the most important position in the National Football League, and Rodgers provides that solution. So he comes here as the 4-time MVP quarterback, winning quarterback, a Super Bowl champion with the Green Bay Packers, an immortal, a historically great, first ballot Hall of Famer, and he comes here and provides hope for the Jets. So the Jets are going to be on bended knee. Plus, here's the other factor. They all still have jobs because Rodgers wants them to be here because he's comfortable. I mean, that's the other aspect of it, too. So you look at it, what Rodgers wants, Rodgers is going to get. You saw him from player personnel year number 1, not so much year number 2, but Saleh's still here. Joe Douglas is still here. Nathaniel Hackett is still here, even though they tried to replace him during the course of the offseason, and Rodgers was aware of that situation because Rodgers is comfy and cozy with everybody in place, and whatever is good for Aaron is good for the Jets.
Yeah, and he looked great running out with that flag that in the home opener last year, and then 4 plays, we saw what happened. But he does. He gives them hope. As you said, 4-time MVP, Super Bowl champion. I think they're still surprised that he chose them to come to this organization, because the Jets don't get a player like that. And he comes here, and along with him signing on the dotted line and becoming your franchise quarterback, that you give up a lot for him. You know what I mean? To him and what he thinks, what he wants, the personnel decisions, bringing in Randall Cobb, Lazard, all that kind of stuff that comes along with the package.
But you've covered sports a long time, right? I can't think of an example where a player it would be one thing if the Jets are coming off a playoff appearance, Rodgers coming off an MVP caliber season, whatever it might be. And I get at the beginning, you're going to be on bended knee and you're going to bow to the whims of Aaron Rodgers. Whatever he wants, Rodgers is going to go out there and get. Have you ever seen a player that hasn't really accomplished anything for an organization have as much power as Rodgers has within that organization. Like, we'll get into the Brunson being named captain by the Knicks yesterday. We'll get into that a little bit later on in the program. Like, you look at Judge needed to earn it.
Yeah.
Right? He did.
Yeah.
You look at other guys. I mean, but Rodgers has done, you want to look at it. I mean, Bryce, that Rodgers has accomplished nothing as a Jet, yet he basically, the entire organization runs through him. It's no longer the New York Jets, it's the New York Rodgers. I mean, that's it. And, you're right. You're 100% correct. Even though Robert Saleh didn't really want to commit when he was asked about it about a week ago down in Florham Park, and I'm sure you were there, Otis.
Yep.
He didn't want to commit one way or the other when it comes to Rodgers, but if Rodgers feels like he needs reps in that third game, he's going to take them.
Yeah,
if he feels like he doesn't, you know what? We'll see you week 1 against the San Francisco 49ers, but whatever Aaron wants, the Jets are going to go out there and do.
Certainly. And I think the organization wants to get him to game 1. They don't want it to get derailed in the preseason. So I think they're going to they want to bubble wrap him. They don't want him to see any action in the preseason. But, again, if he wants to play, if he feels like in year 21 or, that he needs to go out there and get some action beforehand, they're gonna like you said, on bended knee, they're gonna do what he wants them to do, because he's been through so many of these things. He knows his body, and this is a new thing for him. That the torn Achilles, missing all of last season, trying to come back, as you said, late in the season, when everything was out of reach and no playoffs or anything like that was in reach. They shut it all down. But this is new uncharted territory for him. He wants to see, I'm out there at camp. He's running around. He's doing what he can do in training camp. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, I think Robert Saleh left that door open for a reason.
Yeah, he did, and we'll see exactly where we go here moving forward when it comes to Rodgers. But I would make the argument to this, is that if I were the Jets, if there's something you're going to put your foot down to, with Tyron Smith going through whatever he's going through physically right now, right? And he has not been the epitome of health toward the tail end of his run with the Dallas Cowboys, and the Jets were able to bring him on the cheap. A rebuilt offensive line. You want to make sure that he's good to go week 1 against the San Francisco 49ers. Here's what helps the Jets. What helps the Jets is that Rodgers is going up against an elite level defense day in and day out at camp. So regardless of, what you're going to see, say, against the Giants in that third preseason game, the Giants defense, as good as I think Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau are going to be, and as much love as I have for Dexter Lawrence, the Giants defense isn't nearly as talented when you're looking at their 11 as compared to the Jets. So if I'm Saleh, if there's something I'm going to put my foot down onto, regardless of what Rodgers wants, it would be this. Now, do I think that means anything? No. I mean, because I think he's going up against what is going to be, if they're going to get the Hassan Reddick situation worked out, I think is going to be a top 3 defense in the National Football League that has the ability to impose their will. And this year, Otis, they're actually going to have an offense that can actually move the football and score some points.
And that's what both sides of the football are talking about out at camp, that iron sharpens iron type thing, where the defense, is formidable. They put up a lot of resistance against that offense. The offense with Aaron Rodgers back there matching wits with the safeties and linebackers and things like that they're making each other better. So, yeah, he gets that work during the practices, but they're not hitting. He's got to take a hit. He's got to move around for his life. Run, you know what I mean? Like, try to escape.
Well, you hope
somebody.
not. You feel the offensive line's decent enough.
Yeah. Well, they feel like that offensive line has been improved, and it's going to continue to improve because they know job one is to keep Aaron Rodgers upright, keep him protected, even though that injury last year was it wasn't anything where it was because of a breakdown in the offensive line, but it was just an injury to his Achilles. But yeah, they go up against each other every day. He's seeing one of the best defenses in the NFL every day, but it's about getting hit. It's about running around, fearing for your life, making decisions down the field, and things like that he needs to get back acclimated to.
But would you put him in harm's way? Let me ask you.
I wouldn't. I probably would not let him play in the preseason. We got to get him to game 1, and then we'll see what happens against the San Francisco 49ers on Monday night.
And then you hope and pray and cross the fingers that the offensive line holds up against that San Fran defense.
And that he can make it to week 2.
Yeah, and that he can make it to week, because that's really what it's at about right now.
Yeah.
And listen, I think everyone expects, because it just happens to be the case with the Jets, and, you had Beningo on this morning, the pain, and the Jet fan kicking the tin can down the street, and the expectation is obviously things are not going to go well. At some point in time, when you look at the Jets, things are going to break right. And I'm not saying they've never broken right, right? We all lived through the Rex Ryan era and the back-to-back AFC championship games and Mark Sanchez winning playoff games and all that. And they had wins, big-time wins with Herm Edwards. But they haven't won a Super Bowl since Joe Namath. And Rodgers was brought here. I've heard the debate and the conversation about Rodgers is that, you can't have the expectations to win a Super Bowl. That's nonsense. Those are the expectations. When you go out there and bring in a quarterback of the caliber of Rodgers, even at this stage of his career, just like when they brought Brett Favre in, is you're not just to make the playoffs, not to just be playoff relevant or be playing meaningful games down the stretch of the season. The goal is to win a Super Bowl. That is it. I mean, you could lose a tough AFC championship game to Mahomes and the Chiefs and be right there. And you know what? You could look back on and say, it was a good season. And we'll see exactly what the Jets look like in 2025. They have not made the moves that they have made. A lot of short-term moves to go all in on this season and not have the expectation to not only be really good in the regular season, but to be a team to be reckoned with come the playoffs.
Yeah, you don't bring in a first ballot Hall of Famer like this who was playing near the top of his game. Remember, he was an MVP a couple seasons before he even got here, if I'm not mistaken. But think about how everything went down. You had Hard Knocks. You had Aaron Rodgers here. You had high hopes. 4 plays into the season.
Oh, it's just
it's unbelievable. So, of course, Jet fans are going to think about kicking the can down.
But at some time, the football gods are going to look on the Jets and say, you know what? You've lived through enough pain. You've lived through enough pain. Maybe give you a little bit of joy. Maybe give you a little bit of happiness. You haven't seen the playoffs since 2010. Maybe this is the year.
Well, you're talking about Joe Beningo. I mean, he'll say, not in my lifetime, bro. Not again in my lifetime. He got to see it that one time, so he had his thrill. Will it happen again? Will it happen with Aaron Rodgers? Who knows? We shall see. First step is keeping him healthy and him gelling with his offensive players, his weapons, Garrett Wilson and guys like that. We saw some of that in the preseason, and I believe that Garrett Wilson with a healthy Aaron Rodgers is going to make a huge step this season. I mean, he's been back-to-back 1,000-yard receptions with guys like Trevor Siemian, Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, guys ripping. I can only imagine what
He's a stud.
Yeah, he is a stud. So, and I think that he's becoming even more comfortable. I think last year with Aaron Rodgers going into his first season here, there was so much reverence, so much around him that Garrett Wilson would not have been able to have those discussions that we've seen him have with them on the sidelines this preseason. I think he's a year further into it, and he knows that they have to hit the ground running. They have to be on the same page. They have to be detailed, all that sort of thing. So I think he's a little more comfortable talking to Aaron this preseason, and that's probably why we saw those animated discussions on the sidelines.